Financial success is celebrated and wealth is glorified, but many people have been wounded in getting there or suffered its impacts on their relationships, mental health, and life purpose. I am your host, Richard Robinson. I'm a licensed psychotherapist and an alternative healing arts practitioner. Join me as I talk with people about their journey with money, how they came into it, how they have managed, and if they have recovered. Welcome to Healing Wounds of Wealth. Are you living a rich life? Hello, I'm Richard Robinson, and thank you for coming to another podcast of Healing Wounds of Wealth. Are you living a rich life? Today's episode is with Warren Gendel. He is the co-founder and CEO of Club EVEXIA, a fantastic club, sports and work club here in Marin County, California. And please watch. He tells an incredible story of repeated failures and successes, betrayals, trust issues, and going within and creating himself anew, and how his values have changed and how he wants very different things now than what he once did, and how he is living a rich life. Thank you. Please stay tuned. Stand by. Here we go. Hello, I'm Richard Robinson. Here we are in another episode of Healing Wounds of Wealth. Are you living a rich life? I'm here with Warren Gendel, who is the co-founder and CEO of Club EVEXIA, a fantastic large club offering excellent workout facilities and trainers and all kinds of great programming, and as well a beautiful workplace here in Marin County. And I have been going there and I've met Warren and enjoyed meeting him. And Warren, you had your own podcast. You have your own podcast. And in one of the early episodes I was listening to, you were so just candid, vulnerable, disclosing about your own backstory, your story, back and current, which has included a real journey with money, with lots of ups and downs. And that's why I asked you to participate in this podcast, speaking to that specifically. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for being here. Hey, Warren.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor that you actually came up to me and heard the podcast and understood my message about vulnerability. And I wanted to put myself out there for so many reasons. I guess I wanted people to see me for who I am and not what I built. Because Club EVEXIA is near and dear to me. Like you said, it's fitness, wellness, and social, bringing it to Marin County. And so I decided to put myself out there with my business partner. And it was probably the best thing I've ever done, to be honest with you. I feel so much lighter about expressing my backstory and how I got here and who I am. And I hope it can help people. Matter of fact, it has helped some members come up to me and said they were really thankful and that they were actually honored to be members here after hearing my story. So I'm excited. And when you talked about your topic, it's crazy. I usually take a time to think about it, but when you told me the topic and you explained what you were going to discuss, it just resonated toward me. So thank you again for having me.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we start with your backstory briefly? I mean, so much of your story, you have different phases.
Yeah.
With so many, each one with its ups and downs until you've come to this. I mean, you've had a whole lifetime with however many successes, but your story is punctuated with these rides.
Yeah.
Without going too much into detail, can you help the listeners understand what you're referencing? Even when you started as a kid, the presence of business and money, it was prevalent in your life.
It really was. Yeah. So it started, I'm born and raised in California. I grew up here in Marin County, but it started as a child in the family business. And I grew up with a lot of money. My father is from California, but my grandfather was from Poland. He came out to the States as an immigrant, started his first company, Southern California, was a potato chip factory. And And my father and his 3 brothers, took the legacy, and we had a Los Angeles nut house. We had produce, a big produce center in Los Angeles, and a candy manufacturing plant in Richmond, California here. We were like the Willy Wonka family. So I actually grew into a ton of money with my father, but it wasn't always the roses were always didn't smell good for me. It was very troublesome for me because my mom and my father were back and forth a ton. I probably growing up lived in 13 different homes. My dad was pretty much not a present father because he was into the business. So we had housekeepers. We had the 10,000 plus square foot home growing up in Marin County. After like I said, moving 13 different times with my mother, they were back and forth. But I've seen a lot growing up with a lot of not pleasurable things. I was exposed to a lot of alcohol, drugs, and gambling all through that process. And so it was very troublesome for me growing up. I had 2 idols growing up. One was Jacques Cousteau and one was Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I say that because they played a very big part of who I am today, and what I've gone through to keep persevering in my endeavors. As a kid, you know, I did everything on my own. I have 2 I'm the little one of I have 2 siblings. They were never around. It was always me. They were closer together, and I was always pushed to the side. So I learned on my own a lot, and, scuba diving, I got certified as a diver at 13 years of age. I think the underwater world was my escape. So I would go underwater. I would love to scuba dive. It was my escape and just be my peace. So that was amazing. Arnold Schwarzenegger, I was fascinated by the human body. I loved bodybuilding. I loved the way that the human body did develop that way. So as a kid, I was always trying to be active. So fast forward, I graduated and I went to Santa Barbara for college. I went there purely for surfing, believe it or not. And there was a moment when I went to a gym and there was a big bodybuilder gentleman and who was my mentor to this day. And I started talking to him and he brought me under his wing for bodybuilding. Now, I was a very active young man in high school, surfing, smoking a lot of weed and back in the day, but it was what we did in the 80s. So ended up doing bodybuilding, and so bodybuilding was that breaking point for me, which actually saved my life. I did 5 bodybuilders in college. It was interesting for me. I just really gravitated towards the discipline, and I think the discipline was something that I never had as a child because I had absentee parents. And so what it did for me was to really connect me to me against me and the aspect of accomplishments. So I was trying for the Santa Barbara title. It took me 5 different times to win the title. I won Mr. Santa Barbara in 1992. I was a personal trainer all through college. I went from Santa Barbara to San Diego State, and personal training supported me through college. I got my master's in exercise physiology and came back to Northern California is where I started my first company.
Can
Uh,
I jump in, Warren?
Please, yes.
I really appreciate you just going through these major events, and I wanna ask you a couple questions about some things you said before we get too far away from it. Well, regarding wounds of wealth and living a rich life, I just wanna ask you some key questions about that or that part of your life, being a
Yeah,
kid, growing up, getting yourself into college, working through it. You mentioned a couple things that I think a lot of viewers can very much relate to.
good.
And that's the experience of, wow, we had a lot of money, we had successful businesses, Willy Wonka factory, the whole bit, and my dad was absent.
Yeah. That was a big one for me. Not only was my father absent, my mother was never around. They were back and forth. They got remarried 3 different times. I watched my father remarried to a woman within 6 months that he met her, and she had 2 she has 2 sons, and one was older than me, one was younger than me. This is the woman that took my dad, got him to marry her, and then built this huge house in Marin County, which was 13,000 square feet. She would torment me when my dad was always gone.
Yeah.
She would push me. It was horrible for me. It was really, devastating for me to a point where, you know, as a listeners, I talked about it on my podcast. I tried to take my life at one point
Mhm.
during it. It was interesting. It was my brother-in-law at the time that actually walked past me and saved me, but I was tormented from her verbally, and she put me in to see a psychiatrist, and I needed help, and I was 13, 14 years of age. They finally got a divorce, and, well, all this money we had was interesting was I hated it. I didn't wanna be around it. My dad was my mentor. I admired him, but he was never present,
Mhm.
and so it was tough for me. We had Rolls Royces. My stepmom would drive me to school in a Rolls Royce. I didn't wanna be seen in it,
Mhm.
and for me, I didn't wanna be the spoiled rich kid, and so that was really damaging for me. So I had a there was times where, I mean, don't get me wrong, I had a really good time in a lot of times, instances with the big yachts we had, and but in reality, I just wanted to be loved and been heard, and it's fascinating how quickly I became an adult. But
Well, it sounds like you had to parent yourself. You had
I
to bring
really did.
yourself up.
Yeah, I really did. I really did. My housekeepers were my closest people to my life.
Right.
We had a lot of different housekeepers, and they're the ones that I would actually go talk to and cry to, and they would cuddle me and take care of me. And my dad was a loving man, don't get me wrong, but again, he wasn't, it was all about making money
Right.
and with his brothers, and it was that fast pace, and it was a lot of stuff that, that was very, damaging to me.
So by the
I
way,
felt
I wanna name I call this the poverty of affluence.
I like that. The poverty of affluence. I like that a
Right.
lot.
And
Yeah,
that there you are, ideally so privileged, like, from all of the purposes, and the people that don't have that kind of money, they get their grandparents to mind the kids, and the grandparents love the kids, and they're long term, whereas with all that money, you had housekeepers minding the kids,
that's right.
and they might have been very nice, but they come and go and all the rest, and you end up raising yourself and find yourself suicidal as a late teenager. How old where do you think you were when that,
I was about 14 years of age, and prior to that, I was an abused kid too, believe it or not, and that was very torturing for me. That's something that and I've been married for 30. I've been with my wife today, and I'm still with her for 34 years, and so I broke this chain
Mhm.
in my family, but I didn't tell her anything about my past until about 2 years ago. So I was living this life in denial my whole life about
Right.
being
Well, call it what you will. I mean, you're calling it denial. I'm not gonna dismiss that. It sounded like it was very real and alive for you, but you just weren't sharing it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I was definitely suppressed it. So it was definitely tough for me because we had a lot of different housekeepers, and
Oh, yeah.
one tried to, you know, have their way with me, and it was so every time we had new housekeepers, it was pretty scary for me.
Right. And so anyways, by the way, I personally can relate to these aspects of the story. I think a lot of people can. I know this is your story, but I wanna interject. For me, when I was a kid, an icon that I could hold on to, a point of reference, was the comic book character Richie Rich.
Mm,
And the character was that he was very, very wealthy. Everybody knew it. He knew it. And he was still a really nice kid and unaffected by the wealth. And he could relate to anybody. And most of the characters in the comic books came from there was the kid from the haystack, the farm boy, and all these different kids. And he could relate kindly and honestly and be a nice boy to everybody. And it didn't matter who they were, where they're from. And this was an image, a character that helped me as well. His name was Richie Rich, and I was Richard Robinson, right? RR, and his name was the same, so I could relate to that. So, anyways, I guess I just wanted to share.
no, I appreciate. What's interesting? You just said that is in high school, I was friends with everybody.
Yeah,
I wasn't this, the stuck up athlete person kid. I was connected with so much diversity that my heart was open for everybody. I couldn't figure out. Some of my friends not make fun of me, but say, "Why are you friends with these people?"
yeah,
It was the most wildest thing. I just didn't. Now you said that, it kind of resonated. Why?
yeah.
So thank you for sharing that.
Why are you friends with him? Why'd you have him over for lunch? Because he's
Right,
a nice guy. Because I like him.
right.
That's sure
That's
he's
it.
from that part and everything, and his clothes and his family's all very, very different than mine. But so what? I like him. He's a good guy.
That's interesting. Really makes sense.
Well, anyway, so I can relate to aspects of your story thus far. Being in an abusive relationship with others, like the second, being a blended family situation that's not going well, and dad doesn't notice. He's not connected and present enough to pay attention that his own his kid, that everybody's actually hurting. because they're too busy doing their thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the poverty. Well, that a lot of people in a lot of situations suffer from that. But I think poverty, I mean, affluence enables that much more because they can be very, very engaged in many very dynamic things and not need to be home and not and send the kids to good schools and have the best care and all the rest. And that's just part of the mix of
Yeah.
the possibility of, well, wounds of wealth that some people are brought up. Some parents are so engaged in their whatever business and other activities, and the kids are cared for, they can check out. They can not be present.
Yeah. It's almost where my dad was, I think, in his mind. Well, I'm gonna provide this incredible house and these
Yeah.
cars, and in the meantime, where his wife, my stepmom, would mess up my room and have the housekeeper clean all her kids' rooms to tell my father how much of a slob I was. And
Mhm.
then my father would look at me like, "Son, you gotta take care of your stuff." I mean, look, and so, like, "Dad, that wasn't me." But the problem was there was no, he wouldn't believe me.
Yeah.
So growing up, I don't trust anybody. So it's been one of my things for me to this day in business is who do I trust? When do I trust? And so trust has been a big part of growing up for me and as an adult.
I get
That's it.
that, and I wanna get to that later because you have different stories. You've shared
Yeah.
with me some already, but I wanna share it with the viewers. But one of the themes that you're talking about is betrayal and trust, and so we'll
Right.
come back to that.
Okay.
So
That's
thank you. I wanna bring forward, I mean, it's just great the way that you're describing how you resourced yourself, how you accessed the underwater world, how you accessed your physical body, how you brought yourself forward from what sounds like really a very isolating experience.
yeah, it truly
And
was.
yeah, and also very disorganizing experience filled with lots and lots of contradictions and well, frankly, hypocrisy about love and how to live and there you parented yourself and a lot of people in many situations kids have to be they're called a parentified child, either they're parenting themselves or very often they're also parenting their parents, and these things happen. And yeah, once I was an intern, you talked about how your housekeepers were your family. I remember when I was an intern and working at a school system, and one of the during a meeting, one of the other interns said she asked the kid to draw a picture of his family, and he drew a picture of himself and his housekeeper,
Mm.
and that was the kid's picture of his family, right?
Wow. Wow.
And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I went to a intensive retreat, and I had to introduce people that I want in my family, third person on who they were, and it was very hard for me to introduce my father as my father to my people in my group
Yeah,
on how I saw. So it's tough for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's come forward.
Yeah.
And so you did college, and I guess where I'm going at when I introduced these highs and lows that you talked about, I mean, you had it's just I don't want to steal your thunder. You had 3 separate businesses.
That's correct.
Goodness, that rode a wave.
Yeah, Club EVEXIA is my 4th. Coming back from college, since I was a trainer, my first job was selling fitness equipment at a store in Marin County, and this gentleman had 5 stores. Killed it, crushed it, sold, so much equipment for him because I just knew fitness from my training days. But bodybuilding, again, just reference that was something that was so powerful for me. It is, like I said, who made me who I am today, as an essential accomplishment. As I called up my father, and told my dad that this business that I'm in, I can do this on my own. So I learned the business through the owner of the stores, and he took me to trade shows, and I was able to establish relationships. My wife was working the San Francisco newspaper, so what I did, I quit. I went to the leap of faith and trusted the ability of my. I don't know where this came from because at that time I was 22. Decided I can believe in the ability of selling. I would look for used fitness equipment, and then I would resell for 10x or more. And I would literally be in street corners and flea markets with a bunch of equipment selling it. Fast forward, I was able to establish a $10 million business from doing that. I had ended up with 5 of the same kind of stores around the Bay Area over a period of, it took me 2 years to get my first brick and mortar. But I was on this trajectory. We were the top dealers. I guess one of the big things is in fact, any of your listeners can really take one nugget from it is if you find your passion and you can really stick to your passion, no matter what that is, and being able to monetize it, that is the way, in my mind, is how life should be. And that's what I did. And we can get into the other businesses. Was I always stuck to what my comfort level was, which was fitness and wellness. And so my fitness stores were so unique because we had personal trainers I had in them. And so we'd offer trainers for our client, for the customers to go to their house. So they would teach you how to use it. And so it was it was a very dominant and powerful business during the 90s.
Did you just say you went from selling used fitness equipment that you bought for whatever cheap from people letting it go and selling it at flea markets?
Yeah. Sausalito Flea Market was one of them, matter of fact.
Sausalito Flea Market, to a $10 million business?
That's correct. That's
Yeah, okay.
correct.
I just
Each
wanted to
store
flag that.
yeah, each store was doing gross 2 million a year, just about, and, we were really crushing it. I had stores around the Bay Area and a big distribution center in Richmond. It was a very fun ride for me, but I had it taken away from me from a hostile takeover from a customer. It was a merger acquisition guy plus a lawyer. It was a customer came in, bought about $10,000 worth of equipment, scoped out my business, asked a lot of questions, came back a year later, bought about $10,000 and asked me if I wanted to scale it to a big, big business. And obviously I'm 25 and I said I would love to do that. He wrote a contract that I didn't give it to my attorney. Big lesson for me, but he seduced me with a $300,000 check as a buy-in, and I accepted it. Over the next 3 or 4 months, he brings in a CFO, and then I'm started talking to the CFO, asking him questions. He's referring me to go, you got to ask Phil. I said, no, you asked me. He said, well, no, Phil owns the company. That's how I found out. I called the gentleman and what are you talking about? He goes, oh, I own 52% of your business. So at that point, I lost my shit. I actually called, we just had our first baby, just bought our first house. I called the police department because I was on my way to see him, say, I'm going to beat somebody up. I was that frustrated. It was like my whole life. And I went to the CFO and I was going to just beat the shit out of him. And I didn't, but the police were already there. And I got, he took over my company. And so my employees, I treat my employees really, really well. They walked out on him a couple months later. And I ended up with the business back, but I didn't realize he drained my bank account, didn't pay any of my bills, didn't pay any of my leases. And so I tried to sustain him for 6 months and I had to file Chapter 7. And this is what's ironic. This is where it gets really tough for me because my father went into a depression during that time. And that's one of the reasons why I moved back to the Bay Area. And he got remarried to my mother, and that was the last time they got remarried. But I started helping him. So to your point, I was bringing him back, and they had an American Express card. They were spending $17,000 a month on it through my business. And my dad was somewhat trying to help me. But the minute I lost my business, he fled. They went to Los Angeles and they left me high and dry. And that was a very, very tough situation for me, especially when I had my first baby.
Wow.
So that was business number one.
Business number one with 2 betrayals. One from the guy
Yes.
who said, I'm here to help you
Yes.
scale your business.
Yes.
And it ends up he owns more than half.
Yeah.
And then another betrayal from dad.
Yeah, that was a rough one, you know?
Mom and dad, effectively.
Yeah. Mom and dad, that was a rough one for me. So you can understand why trust is really difficult. I did a thesis in college. It was children and applied metric trainings. I loved working out with kids. I had this crazy idea of opening up a studio for kids, for fitness, 6.5 to 15. I was able to get $50,000 from a good friend of mine to start it. And it was in San Marin here in Northern Marin, called FitWise for Kids. I'm gonna plug it. It was circuit training, big emphasis on nutrition. Well, that took off. That was 2004. Obesity was on the rise. I was watching, said to myself, I can scale this. I was watching this, one of the fastest growing franchises at the time called Curbs Fitness for Women. They had like 2,000 of them or more. I'm like, well, that's simple, stupid how to operate. I can do the same thing. I learned that. I ended up franchising FitWise for Kids, and I had 75 locations. I was in 16 states, in Australia with them. I was on all the media, the Inside Edition, the Today Show, CNBC is one of the fastest growing kids fitness businesses. It was such an amazing business for me, what I was doing for the kids. It was incredible. So I'm on this high now, once again, from the low to a high. And then the 2008 banking recession wiped me out. That was a rough one for me. That was, that one stung a little bit more because then I brought in investors. I had sophisticated investors in it. So I was scared. I was able to spin that and we were able to sell it to one of my franchisees in Boca Raton, who's actually still going with them. Maybe a handful of them left. But I was able to get my investors whole, which that's all I really wanted to do is live in integrity with that. But for me, I ended up with nothing. So that was a big, big, big hit. So at that point, I don't know what to do. I'm just like, I'm trying to reinvent myself.
What years
I,
is
that was, well, 2008. That was
well, and
2009, 10.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And how many do you have a wife, still 1 kid, 2 kids?
That time okay, good, good. We had 2 kids now.
Yeah.
Yeah, my son, my daughter. I have a stepdaughter. So when I met my wife, Lisa, she had a little girl that was 3. So I went into this instant family to begin with, which it's total paradox on who I was before because I never could commit to any girlfriends just because of my upbringing. But my wife was my rock, and so I was able to. It's almost like she was like a mother figure that I never had. I think that was what it was that really captivated me. So now with there's 13 years apart from my stepdaughter to my first daughter, and then my son is 4 years from my daughter.
Mhm.
So
So
now,
it's 2010. You've
yeah,
got a wife, 3 kids, and, a failed business again.
yeah, and so then I'm like, okay, so this is not going to be good. I went back to what I knew, which was selling fitness equipment. I started going back in that whole sweet spot. So I think that's why I talk about your passion, because for me, my passion was always around the same area. Um, I started doing the same thing. I started getting my good friend, when I had my fitness equipment stores, I actually set up one of my gentlemen that I brought aboard and gave him my commercial division before I lost my business. And he's thriving to this day from me doing that to him. I have a tendency to give a lot. And so I set him up. And so I called him up. I said, Steve, I need to do something. I just lost this. And so I started my grassroots of selling fitness equipment, but I started doing it commercially. So I started outfitting property complexes, designing their fitness centers, police departments, fire departments. I started just hustling. And so that built me to a consulting business. Then I started doing consulting, which I started able to pay myself a little bit more in the consulting. During that time, I was able to build health clubs. I built like 6 health clubs from the ground up for various people from Humboldt County all the way to Central California. And then I had corporate wellness, and the corporate wellness was IBM was a big client. I outfitted them. I did a lot of lunch and learns for the executives. I had, trainers in there. I had yoga instructors, very powerful. And I had 2 other big companies. I had BioMarin and Restoration Hardware. And now I'm loving life because my overhead was low. I'm still a skeptic. I'm still trying to figure out, money, it's interesting for me. From my growing up, I always wanted to provide nice for my family, but not over the top. So I had this standard of living. So I always wanted to make sure they lived in Marin and good areas of Marin. And it was hard for me to afford it, but that's what I wanted. I think that was just from living the rich life as a kid. So I just challenged myself on that, in the nicer area, I guess for the finer qualities of life for my family. I was doing really, really well with that. And then, and that was from 2012 to COVID, basically. And then COVID hit and wiped me out again. Now that one was the COVID one was the massive, almost like the atomic bomb in my head. I for sure thought I was it. I was in the fetal position, crying in my closet. My wife was holding me. I didn't know what else to do. It was rough. It was rough, but, I think that humbled me again. I stuck to my passion. I said to myself, "Well, I can build health clubs. I love this." I wanted to do something in Southern Marin way back in 25 years ago. I thought about doing a health club in Southern Marin. I, applied and applied and applied for that disaster loan, man, the PPM from the COVID. Believe it or not, through my consulting business, I got a check for $250,000 from them.
In
I was
disaster relief?
uh-huh.
Okay.
It was unbelievable. So during that time, I was drinking whiskey, going at 4 o'clock, I'd start. I was bottoming out. I didn't know, and that came in. Scott, my business partner, Raymond, who I'm with today, we're really good friends, real estate. He just sold his management company. I went to him and proposed an idea of opening up a fitness center, which is Club EVEXIA. What's even crazy is we did this whole plan and we went in to do it and we were getting an SBA loan and we just almost got approved. And they dug some shit about me back in when I got my first that bankruptcy. That was 2007 or less than that, or that they denied our loan. So we're all in. We have it at least. And so I'm like, I don't have this kind of money to put in EVEXIA. So Scott ended up stepping up and putting in 10 times more than I did. But we're 50-50 partners because I'm the man that knows how to do this business. And he's coming in as my CFO on a whole different level. And we started Club EVEXIA. We were in, and we started doing this 4 years ago. But it was, we talked about it. We decided to step up. We paid off all our debt in 4 years here. It's going, amazing. But it's a journey to me that I'll I'll never forget. I got shingles from it, building it. I almost died from it. That's why I wear sunglasses. This left eye is just sensitive, but it was it was a definitely challenging. I was asked to speak on a panel, and this is when let me back up. When we built Vexia, I was spinning so hard on who I was. I didn't know what to do. So I started doing really some deep, deep, deep work. And I went to my very first intensive retreat for 7 days, high-end retreat. But that's what started my process of doing self-work on myself. And that's when I knew that I needed to figure myself out because I couldn't sustain what was going on in my head. So I look at the success of it, like you get to a point, but I wasn't curing myself. I wasn't figuring out who I am, loving myself. And so I was about to just snap I told Lisa, my wife, I needed to find help. And we went and as I mentioned, went to this amazing retreat and I've been in men's groups, co-ed groups. I've seen therapy. I still see therapy. And I'm working on myself daily. I meditate. I get up at 3 a.m. every morning. I meditate. I work out at the club at 4 a.m. So I have a really, really strict regimen that I really, really like. But it's definitely something where it's a reminder what the finer things are, and that money. I can't chase the money, nor do I want to. So I feel Club EVEXIA now is a place that has brought me to the best person I am, and I'm able to help hundreds of people and whatever that is, and they're finding their peace at EVEXIA. I was in Maui a couple weeks ago. That's my place is Maui.
Hold
We've been
on.
going for 3 years.
Just a sec. I want to interrupt you, please. I
Yeah.
appreciate you going forward, and I do want to hear about your personal journey and whatever Maui is bringing you. But I want to just address what you just talked about, the development, your journey to the next iteration of the career called business, the next business iteration after 3 previous failures,
Yeah.
one due to pretty significant betrayal, like major takeover, and the others of just life, of just the economy crashing through the real estate bust that happened in 2008, and then COVID and taking the carpet out from underneath you. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
And then you just said that your partner, Scott, you guys didn't qualify for the loan. that you were expecting. You already have the lease on the place. You're literally banking on that loan.
100%.
It didn't come through. Holy shit, now what? We're committed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And your 50% partner says, "All right, Warren, I understand you don't have the cash for that right now." And he puts forward 10 times as much and keeps the previous arrangement that you're still 50% partners.
Yeah.
Many people, well, it's just standard business practice that how much you put in informs how much you own,
That's
right?
correct.
And then
That's
if it makes more later, maybe that gets renegotiated, but very often not. It informs
right.
who owns what and ultimately who wears the pants and all of that, right? And the
He
two of you chose to maintain the same agreement even though the circumstances had absolutely changed.
1,000%. He is my guardian angel. There's no doubt in my mind. I don't wanna speak for him, but I will on this one. He never invests, and it was a wild moment for both of us. I mean, and the loan didn't go through because of my bankruptcy way back when. That I thought it was. I didn't think it would because it was 20 plus years before, and he's like, "Let's." I'm going all in. He had the cash to do it, and at that time, and now he's paid off, and everything's great,
Mhm.
and that was amazing. That was a whole thing that was absolutely, phenomenal.
So we were on a theme of betrayal and trust.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people in many walks of life can struggle with this for any number of reasons. And people for whom money plays a large role in our histories, in our lives, that can have its own shape. And you told stories of the shadow, and now your journey with Scott is the opposite.
Is the opposite. It goes to the listeners. When I did this panel about my story, and I happened to go over just real quickly the different businesses and how I lost them. People came up to me, were so motivated by that, and it dawned on me that I need to get that out there more. It's your passion that you have to stick with. You can't give up. You have to stay the course, because in my mind, life is just a series of problems that happen, but you overcome those problems. And if you keep chasing the same dream, it'll surface, it'll come. It's where I think people will they'll fail, or something will happen, and they'll try something else. And they'll
Yeah.
think, I'm gonna go for the next best thing.
Take a turn.
Take a turn.
Yeah.
I never took that turn. I always just knew that the fitness and that space for me helped me through my journey, that I just wanted to just stay that course, and it did. And, Rich, I don't know. I look back at the hostel one, the first one, I get it. That's just negligent. I should have given it to my attorney. That's his mistake. But the other two, people would fold and not and give up and get a 9 to 5 job. Now, growing up, my whole family's entrepreneurs, so maybe that's a big thing for me, is I don't understand what it's like to have the same paycheck every time. It just never settled with me. I wanted to control my income the way I wanna control it, and whatever that looks like. But I gotta put in my dues and my time to do that, and my sacrifices. Do I regret some of the areas as a family, as a father? Yes, because I can't bring back my memories. And that was my codependency growing up, was and that's where the wounds from the money I was exposed to is I gotta keep working. I gotta keep working. That was my shield versus, no, I didn't have to work. I should have gone to Disneyland with my family and enjoyed that. But I decided to keep working. And so I'm really upset with myself about those choices I made, knowing that I could have done these things. So now it's a different feeling. Now it's like, yeah, I can't dwell on the past. I get to stay present and be the father I am now to all my kids, even though they're older. But those are the decisions that I can't take back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I jumped in. You were talking about how you went to Maui, and I'm
Yeah.
aware we talked before that you're in your story. Now there's a different evolution that you're bringing in. You started working on yourself in depth with all
Yeah.
these different ways, groups, therapists, modalities, and now you're going to Maui.
Yeah, and the reason why I bring that up is because when I was there, I went by myself, for a quick trip, and I had a moment there where I realized that I bought one of my dream cars not too long ago because I asked my wife before I did it, "I don't wanna be selfish, would you mind?" She said, "You deserve it." But when I was over there, I realized I don't want any of that. I wouldn't when we end up over there, I would not take any of that. That's meaningless stuff. I feel like I'm caught in this race here to be like everybody else, to have these things that does that don't do it for me anymore. When for me, it's living and being and not chasing who has the nicer car, who has the biggest house, and who has the most money in your bank. That's not what I'm looking for. And I guess I was in my businesses, it was just how much money can I make and support, but how much can you I guess when you get to the top to a point, I look in the mirror and go, now what am I going to do? Now what? It's an interesting feeling, to say the least.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's a feeling for me. It's how much is enough? What does enough mean? I can truly look in myself and going, yeah, I gave it all what I can give. And I'm very, very grateful that I can actually monetize something like what I built with Club EVEXIA. At the same time, help all these people. But the financial part of it, for me, it's not what I'm doing it for, man. And that's why I think I wanted to put myself out there to our podcast and be so thankful that you put me on yours to let people know that I'm not this privileged person that came into money, who put all this money into this business to have it. And it's not how it worked for me. And so there is hope for a lot of listeners, man, to trust the process in yourself. And if they say you got to go for it, you got to go for it. You got to believe in yourself. And that's the lesson I'm learning too, Richard, is loving myself. I didn't know how to do that. I mean, I'm probably the guy that has the lowest self-esteem. I'm an introvert, but I'm a professional extrovert. But I'm getting better at being confident in myself.
Mhm.
You know, and so I think there's a lot of messages there. People can't do it. They just have to believe in themselves to do it.
Well, I love those that reality that you're coming to. A lot of that has sustained you over decades through very challenging turns. And I want to come to at this time, there's something else going on for you, is what you're sharing. And your experience of going to Maui, you just bought your dream car, right?
Yeah.
You've had this car in mind for however many years, decades, whatever. It's been a fantasy. And finally you achieve it, and you've changed.
Hmm. Overnight, to say the least. It's something that never thought it's obtainable. And then once you obtain it, it's like, was it worth it? Is it worth it? What's worth it?
I want to invite you to rephrase that, because that's not what I hear you're saying. It's not about, is it worth it? I hear you saying, is it me?
Is it me?
Is
I
it
like,
is it really who I am? Not, is it worth it? You've had the
right,
journey, you spent the money, you're not second guessing that.
right.
The question is it me now and going forward? And I hear you
That's,
saying you want to go to Maui and have a more minimalist lifestyle, more simple
that's right.
something.
Yes. Great point. God, that's a good point. So that is not me. You're correct. The real me is that person over there living that lifestyle with minimal stuff. That's who I am. That's what I realized out of my journey to this point is I would be happy with a Vespa and, beautiful water, my wife, my family, and not, yeah,
You
it's
didn't
interesting.
even say a hot motorcycle, you said a Vespa, right? You didn't say a Harley, you didn't ask for a hog, you didn't yeah, you didn't want a classic Italian bike, you want a Vespa, and, um, and what I'm present to and what I'm bringing out is a change in your values. You said you grew up in affluence, such as it was, considerable affluence, being driven in a Rolls Royce to school. And with all of the ups and downs, got to get up again, got to pull it together, got to get up again. I'm suicidal. I'm lying in a closet. I'm crying. I'm this, I'm that. I'm betrayed. I'm disappointed. I'm crushed. I'm whatever. And you come back around. And it was a priority, as you said, to live in Marin. You wanted a certain lifestyle, especially for your kids. That's what you knew. That's what you wanted to offer. Okay, now you're at this time, it's 2026, you're at this age, you've achieved, you are where you are after all of that, and you go to Maui and something reorganizes.
Yeah. Wow. That's right.
Is this correct?
1,000%.
Mhm,
I tear up. I'm tearing behind my glasses when you're saying that.
mhm.
Yeah, that's
Something
right.
reorganized, and what you now are oriented to is, "I want less."
Mhm.
What is it? Is it connecting to the land? Is it what is this?
Yeah, it's connecting to the land, it's living simpler, it's living with no agenda, right? No hurry, none of this mainstream media that we're hearing in this world right now. Because when I'm over there, I don't listen to any of that shit, any of what's going on. So
Okay.
I'm staying connected to I'm being, and I'm fulfilled. My cup is full. My shingles d
Being.
Yeah, my shingles doesn't hurt when I'm there.
Mhm. I am being.
I am being.
So, like, on the topic of wounds of wealth, are you living a rich life? You're describing an incredible circle, an incredible cycle, right?
Yes.
I mean, the kind of thing that you're talking about is what? As you say, meditators. I reflect on Buddhist monks, all these different spiritual gurus and everything that be here now. All these things are about being, and whatever that means for you,
Yeah.
your journey, your unquestionable wounds in many, however many areas. We're talking personal, we're talking very many things. And we've been talking about it through the lens of wounds of wealth, which is true, but it's not the only wounding that a person experiences, not the only wounding that you're experiencing. And you have brought yourself through personal growth. And now you're at a stage when, at this age, can I ask you? It doesn't matter, but how old are you?
57.
You're 57 and you're saying, whoa,
Yeah.
I'd rather just be. I'd rather be less. I'd rather live on the land. I'd rather be in the moment, in my whatever. It's pretty profound.
Mm.
Do you have suggestions or any, like, that's a huge message in and of itself. Do you want to bring that forward for the listener in any more specific way?
You know, what stands out, the reason why I wanna start being because I was the best parent I can be to all my kids, right? I stayed the course through this trials and tribulations, through losing companies, just things that I committed to, and my kids are now all of them are thriving in their own ways. And so that's the happiness for me is once I was able to accomplish that, just start being,
Hmm.
yeah, just figure. Don't be so hard on yourself. Give yourself an opportunity to for some TLC within yourself. I think, but yeah, and stay. And be present the whole time. That was a big, and so that's the being part for me is
Hmm.
being present, and that's what I want to continue to do. But just believe in yourself and stay, and that's it. Believe in yourself and just start being and not doing.
So, consistent with the theme of the show, as you reflect on yourself and these lessons that you're, these changes that you're bringing in, your worldview, your how you, what's important to you and everything, and how you're positioning yourself. I don't know if you're positioning yourself to change your life, and I think the question, in your opinion, in your estimation of yourself, all in, are you living a rich life?
All in. I am. I am now. How about that? I am now. I am now. I wasn't before, but I am now.
Okay, all
Mhm.
right.
And I'm living a rich life. And it's getting richer and richer every time. And meeting you, sitting with you has made it even more richer.
Well, that's
I re
very nice. Thank you.
I really mean that. Yeah.
Mhm.
I really mean that.
Well, it's a blessing to the listeners to hear you so honestly tell your story and reflect on yourself and your journey and reflect and say, yeah,
Really have.
I am living a rich life, all in. Sure, day to day it can be this and that and all that. We all have, and you run a dynamic business and whatever, however many irons you have in the fire, and on and on. And it is now. And I guess that's the wounds of wealth, and so many things that you've done for your own well-being, starting back when you were a kid. It just connecting to the land,
That's right.
being in the water, being in your body. That's very here and now, inherently. Anybody that's gone scuba diving, it's all about right here, right
It
now.
That's right.
Your head
That's
cannot be somewhere else because you got to
right.
mind your equipment and your
Yeah,
breathing and everything,
yeah,
and be here now, which is a very profound
yeah,
Buddhist philosophy, not just them, but that's what comes up. I love the point that in your story where you say this, that, and the other, and then I started to do inner work.
yeah.
Whoosh, 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 and then, okay, come back here. It's just coming up for me, I've gotta say. Did you ever watch the series Mad Men?
Yeah.
So, here, spoiler alert for the listeners. So we watched the lead character, and not only him, but the focus was on him going through just a ridiculous life, right? He's a advertising executive on Madison Street. Apparently, they self-named themselves. They coined the phrase madman because they're on Madison Street. And he goes through and he trashes everything. He trashes his relationships. He isolates himself. He uses so much alcohol and cigarettes and whatever all. And then finally in the last episode, in the last scenes, I want to say it. Is that all right?
Yeah, please.
He's gone all the way from New York to California to return a ring to this woman. He feels some sort of allegiance, and he gets there. Her daughter doesn't even want it, and that's the only thing that was driving him with any kind of allegiance or it's the right thing to do. And then it didn't even matter. And he's at Esalen, where he was meeting her in the beginning stages of Esalen in the 60s. And he actually sits in a group he doesn't want to, and he actually has compassion for this other man who's disclosing. And then it shows him in the last scenes, he's actually sitting down and meditating. And it's the first time that he's actually being present to himself instead of chasing, drinking, chasing women, all the things that he did through the whole series. It was so entertaining and so destructive, right? And he actually sits down to meditate, and that's the beginning. That's the end of the series. He's taking in that he's becoming something else. He's becoming himself. Right?
That's awesome. That is really cool. You just said that. Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
That just came to you?
Yeah, as we were talking and remembering that series.
Oh my God. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my rich life I'm living, man.
Yeah.
Swear to God, that's my rich life is the work I'm doing now, the meditation. I love Buddha. And so I practice it as much as I can. I'm learning as much as I can. And I live by that. It's always, yeah.
Well, I really appreciate
Wow.
our time today, Warren.
You, Richard.
Thank you very much, Warren. It's what a pleasure to have you. I look forward to seeing you at the club. In the information about this podcast, there's the website for Club EVEXIA. There's an email address for info at Club EVEXIA. Can people reach out to Club EVEXIA and you if they're inspired? Is that okay with you?
It'd be great. Yeah, you can be easy at warren@clubevexia.com. I mean,
Wow, you even give your own email address. All right.
yeah.
And thank you very much. Clearly,
Thank you.
And we'll call it good for now.
Thank you, Richard. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Healing Wounds of Wealth. If this topic speaks to you, follow the podcast and share it with others who are navigating money, health, and quality of life. Visit the show website at healingwowpodcast.com for more resources and information on my psychotherapy and life-centered therapy work. Remember, money should not limit you. It should help you live a rich life.